Hi, it's time for another verb of the day. Today's verb is come, and this is actually our verb of the week because there are so many phrasal verbs that utilize this. This is part 3 of our discussion. Earlier in part 1 of the video, I talked about some of the common or very basic ways to use this verb. I'm not going to read through these definitions again because they are the same, but I am putting links in the description to this video and eventually in the comments linking to those earlier explanations. For now, what's important is that you remember that come is an irregular verb. When we go to make the progressive form of this verb, you're going to notice we drop the E because this is a verb that ends in vowel consonant E. So we drop the E before we add ing. The past tense form of this verb requires a spelling change. So we change the O to A, and then with a long A sound, the past tense form is pronounced came. The participle form of our verb changes back. So it's spelled C-O-M-E, has exact same pronunciation as the base verb that I've been saying. Now, with all that in mind, let's continue our discussion of the phrasal verbs that utilize this particular verb. The next phrasal verb we're going to be discussing is to come from. When people use this verb, they mean that something originates from something else or it is derived from. So, an example of how you might hear somebody mention this, they might hold up an item of food or something that's made and say, these bananas come from Belize. So, they were grown in this particular country. This is an example of a simple present sentence. Someone might use this to describe a fact. The next phrasal verb we're going to discuss is to come in. This can have a number of different uses. One way to use come in means to arrive or be available for use. An example of how you might hear this used would be, when will the shipment come in? This sentence would really just be like saying, when will the shipment arrive, right? So we want to know, when is this going to be available? That's a simple future question using will. A second way to use come in is used in various competitions, races, and things like that. So people are going to note in what place someone finished. So an example of this might be, the team came in 5th. There is a simple past tense sentence, right? We're talking about a completed action. Maybe we're talking about the race that just ended. Okay? A third way to use come in means to take on a specified role. An example of this might be, the next step is where you come in. Right? So here, someone might be talking through the directions or steps to achieve a particular outcome, right? And someone is saying, okay, now this is when your tasks are going to begin. A fourth way to use come in means to receive information. An example of this, her voice is coming in over the loudspeaker, right? So that is how the information is being shared and then received or heard. This example, her voice is coming in, is an example of the present progressive or present continuous. The next phrasal verb you might encounter is to come into. This can mean to acquire something, to get something, and it comes up most often as people talk about inheritance. So this is generally when an older family member passes away, right? And money or things get passed to a younger or other family member. An example of this, they came into a great deal of money late last year. So this many times is being suggested they inherited it. It was passed down from a different family member. Another phrasal verb you might encounter is to come of. This is used to mean to happen as the result of something else. An example of this, What has come of all your job applications? Right? There's an example of the present perfect. So we know at some point in the past, this person has applied for jobs, and we're really sort of asking, have you gotten an interview? Right? Have you started moving through the hiring process at any of these organizations to which you applied? The next phrasal verb we're going to discuss is come off. This can have a few different meanings. One can be to happen or occur as planned. An example of this might be, the event didn't come off after the horrible weather. So here, didn't come off is an example of the simple past tense. It's a negative. And what we really mean is the event didn't happen. Perhaps this was an outdoor gathering and just the weather was way too bad for the event to take place. A second way to use come off can mean to give a particular impression. Example of this, he comes off nice, but beware. So here's another simple present sentence. I might be describing someone's habit of seemingly acting nice, but suggesting that this person might not really be all that nice or kind. The next phrasal verb we'll discuss is to come on. This can also have a number of different meanings. One way to use it means to show a romantic interest in someone else. You might think of this like flirting. Might be a word you're familiar with. So an example how you might hear someone use this. Many times it's talking to a friend and noting, he was totally coming on to you. Okay? This is a past progressive or past continuous sentence, right? So I'm really saying he was flirting. He was trying to indicate that he was interested in you. Another way to use come on means to hurry up. It can also be used to mean that someone needs to move quickly. This frequently gets used in the imperative. So we're giving a command, telling someone what to do. And that's my example here. Might hear somebody say to another person, come on, we're going to be late, right? They want you to start moving more quickly. A third way to use come on means to encourage someone to stop inappropriate behavior. And again, this is something that gets used in the imperative. So usually as people say it, their tone of voice changes. It might become more serious, maybe a bit more forceful. You might notice other things with their body language indicating that they are not so pleased and they want you to stop something. So an example of how you might hear this, maybe you've heard parents say something like, come on, you have to stop fighting like little children, right? So maybe we're talking about some older teenage children in their 20s, right? But we think they're behaving like they're 5, right? So we're trying to get them to stop that behavior. The next phrasal verb we're going to discuss is to come out. This can also have a number of different meanings. One way to use come out can mean to become known. Well, this is where information starts to become publicly known or people are more aware of something. An example of this. When did that report come out? This is a simple past tense question, right? We want to know, when did this information get shared? When did people learn about this? Another way to use come out that is also kind of related there, we might hear it used to describe something that is being published or issued. So you might hear this with things like newspapers, magazines, albums, musical albums, or my example here is about movies. When does that movie come out, right? Here's a simple present sentence, right? I kind of want to know, like, when am I going to be able to see this in a theater? Okay. Another way to use come out can mean to end up. So generally what we're describing is the result of something. So an example of this. This printing came out wrong, right? So whatever I've made, the result is not right. There's another simple past tense sentence. Another way to use come out is this is a great discussion for the month of June and Pride Month here, but it's to tell people that you are either gay, queer, transgender, non-binary, or some other identity that is not considered heterosexual. So, an example of how you might hear this used. In 1997, Ellen DeGeneres came out, right? So, announced her sexuality. Another phrasal verb we can talk about is to come out against. This can mean to declare one's public opposition to something. An example of this. The council person has come out against the rezoning in downtown. Okay? Here is another present perfect sentence, right? This person that is, usually we use city council to talk about the government that exists within a smaller area. So here, somebody is saying this matter is going to be considered. I do not support it. I am opposed to it. The last phrasal verb we'll discuss today is to come out for. Okay? Now with this, we're declaring our support of something. So an example of this. The candidate has come out for the revitalization project. So here they are saying, I support this. Okay? So support, opposition are really opposites here. Okay? Now, let's spend a moment talking about some more words and phrases that are related to our verb come. The first word we're going to discuss today is an adjective. It's up and coming. So when this adjective gets used, it's generally describing someone or something that is making good progress and is very likely to be successful. An example of this might be, who is your favorite up-and-coming singer? Okay? So this is not going to be someone that everybody knows, right? So as an example, Beyonce is not an up-and-coming singer. She is already extremely successful. She is not likely to be, right? So she is an accomplished performer, a successful one. But here's what I'm asking for is maybe someone I don't know, someone I haven't heard of, but you think is likely to be quite successful and quite good. The next thing we're going to discuss is the phrase to come and go. When people use this, many times they're telling people that they can move around freely. They might be able to arrive at something and depart something whenever they would like. So they're not kind of official start and end times to something or an expectation that someone will be in a particular place for a set amount of time. An example of this might be, all the invitees are welcome to come and go anytime between 6 and 10. Okay. So whatever type of event we have here, this is not something where you need to be there at 6 o'clock, right? It's fine if you want to go at 6, but you're also not expected to stay all the way to 10. So one person might show up at 6:15 and leave at 6:30. Another person might show up at 7 and stay until 9:30, right? Each person gets to choose when they arrive and when they depart. Another phrase for us to discuss is to come. So this is meaning in the future. An example of this in a sentence might be, another video about the verb come is still to come. So it's going to be released in the future. Another phrase you might encounter is to, and we can say this two ways, to come out smelling like roses or to come up smelling like roses. Both of these are going to mean the same thing. And what happens in this phrase is something, maybe a bad situation, something difficult that may have made you look bad. Or maybe it made you seem dishonest, right? But kind of we're having some type of bad situation. But what happens is something changes that. And eventually, right, people think you're good, you're honest, right? Maybe after some other time passes or something else occurs. So it's kind of like it initially starts bad, but everything's okay at the end. So an example of this might be, While many people believe that she was responsible, and this might have been responsible for something bad, she came out smelling like roses after the investigation. So there might have been a situation where, right, we thought this person did this bad thing, right? And people were thinking, oh, yes, they're responsible. But more information gets released, gets shared, and now people are like, oh, no, that person's fine. They didn't do anything bad. So that's the coming up smelling like roses. The last phrase we'll discuss today is the phrase easy come, easy go. And people tend to use this when something has been achieved rather easily and also then lost rather easily. Let me give you an example of that. I found $20 in the park, but then I got a parking ticket. So you might hear somebody say, easy come, easy go, right? So like this idea of I found money, but then I had to pay some money, right? So the $20 came in and 20 or more maybe went out as I had to pay the parking ticket. And that's just a pretend thing. No parking tickets here. Thank you so much for watching today's video. I hope you'll tune in later for the video for part 4 of this discussion with the verb come. Have a great day, everybody.